when I first heard reports of Ferguson, I felt like it would be a story for maybe a week. And that, like in the past, there wouldn't be a sustained effort to really understand the structural roots of what happened in Ferguson and really kind of what people are doing to make a difference. I thought it was going to be a brief story. And one of the things that I thought was so amazing about Ferguson is that the reason why it stayed in the news is that the movement that surrounded it knew that it wasn't just about one incident between a civilian and a police officer. They always were searching for the structural questions, and they were talking to a broad audience about so many intersections. So they were talking about the criminalization of the poor. They were talking about these ticketing systems that have been the number one revenue source for some of these small towns and counties. They were talking about the underserved and under-resourced schools that Michael Brown went to. They were talking about the electoral politics in a city like Ferguson. And so one of the things that I think this speaks to is not only the power of a movement to say, look, there are bigger issues here, but also I think that within the news media, we had really good experts. I think we had excellent people who were front and center explaining to the public the importance of this moment. Well, I think August 2014, it had been a long, hot summer around a lot of issues. If you remember back to maybe starting in the spring, we're getting stories about the unaccompanied minors at the border. We were getting all of this horrific video of the beheadings and the rising threat of ISIS, right? So we had a number of very important stories that I think were bringing a lot of people to the consciousness of something's happening internationally. And we have a lot of vulnerable populations. We have a lot of people who are being victimized by violence. So in a sense, Ferguson was part, I think, of a larger dialogue that was happening. And I think it was also an important moment because for me, it was connected to the start of school. And I think that my own work with social media campaigns to galvanize teachers was all about periodization, something as a historian and something as a journalist, we both, we attend to all of these issues, right? Timing. And so for me, the fact that Ferguson erupted right before school started was really, really important because I was afraid that young people would go to school and no one would have a substantive conversation about what was happening. One of the things that's been really surprising for me, spending a year working with colleges and communities and K through 12 about Ferguson, are the number of communities that don't talk at all. And even in their silence, though they're experiencing a lot of the emotions and a lot of the tensions of it, one of the kind of most unforgettable moments in talking about Ferguson across the country happened to me in St. Louis, where a Ferguson resident said, a number of schools had rules that they weren't allowed to talk about it until November. Or schools that were even open to talking about it would talk to the students briefly and then never mention it again. And so she said, when we talk about rebuilding trust in this community, we're not only talking about the police, but we're also talking about the teachers. And I think what a powerful statement about the role of educational institutions in also helping people understand the context in which they're living. So one of my kind of motivations for Ferguson syllabus was to say, listen, you're having this conversation. If you say you don't know what to talk about, I will help you find that information. And so by crowdsourcing ways that educators, through the various disciplines and through the various environments in which they work, can find something to add nuance, to add dimension to the conversation, I think that that was the best gift that as educators we gave each other. And so what it did was it disrupted the notion that only the historians or only the sociologists or only the people who are concerned about people of color or only the people of color on a faculty are the people who are supposed to respond to this moment. It's a no. As a community, we all have something to say. And as scholars, we all have tools to help people reflect on what's happening. And we're going to bring those all together and we're going to share that and we're going to make each other feel stronger and more powerful in that process. I always joke with my students, I'm nobody on Twitter. Like when people talk about people who have Twitter followers, it's like Kim Kardashian has like 24 million. I have 5. But in the small community, I do have I follow a lot of educators and a lot of educators follow me. And so what I found with Twitter, it was an amazing resource to create a new peer community across a digital divide, people who have similar concerns and similar questions. And it also kind of made people vulnerable to say, I really want to do something. I don't know what it is. And I really think that at these critical moments, everyone has something to offer. And so you just do what you do best. And so some people organized, some people provided legal assistance, some people produced excellent stories and wrote great newspaper stories. For me as an educator, I found a way to help other people teach around these issues in ways that can actually make a difference on how our students understand what's happening.